Good morning or good afternoon, depending on when you're watching this video. It's been a bit of a while since the last one. Apologise for that. I'll spare you the excuses. It wasn't intended to be that way. But yeah, you now join me out in Marbella, Spain. I'm out here for the first 70.3 of my triathlon season. Day before the race, out on the bike early doors, just to kind of beat the traffic and get an activation session done on the bike. And before heading to pro briefing at 9:30. So I'll try and bring you along for the majority of the day and try and show you how I prepare the day before a race. So done my pre-race training for the day, went and did a little swim around the course after the pro briefing, and now back just having some lunch. Got the triathlete staple pre-race, some rice and some veg stock cooking, and I've got a chicken breast in the oven. So got PTO European Open on in the background, catching up on that. The swim course is pretty short. I just cruise around with a few 100 hard efforts in 22 minutes. So yeah, we'll see if that's amended. It was raised in the pro briefing. Someone mentioned it was short, and we'll see if they do anything about it. By all accounts, the bike is pretty hilly, but it's on some quite fast roads, not too technical. So I think kind of climbing pretty hard and then just carrying good speed down. It's kind of an out and back course, so it's essentially 2 climbs, 2 descents, and then the run is 3 laps of relatively flat course, but it's kind of on some compact sand, so that might take a bit of the speed out. But yeah, just kind of put my feet up now, eat some food, got to go and rack my bike and transition bags at some point this afternoon. But other than that, just yeah, take it easy and try and get an early night, because it's a reasonably early start, 7:40. It's been a few days since 70.3 Marbella, and I've had the last few days to kind of think about how the race went and try and draw some positives from it, and also some negatives and some things to improve on going forward into future races. And I thought it'd be a good idea just to kind of share those thoughts with you guys. So starting with the swim, like any triathlon does, it was just beach start, and these starts are typically fairly chaotic, especially when it's quite a big field. Kind of run into the water and there's just kind of bodies everywhere, so the first 100 meters or so is always pretty physical and full on, just yeah, as I say, bodies everywhere. But on the start I tried to identify a couple of swimmers that have typically swam a fair bit quicker than me, with the aim to be to try and stick with them as long as possible. I felt I got off to a reasonably good start, managed to find some clear water fairly soon on, and so I could just kind of settle into my stroke and yeah, just focus on my swimming rather than focusing on trying not to get beaten by other swimmers. After rounding the first buoy, we were kind of swimming into direct sunlight as the sun was rising, which made it pretty hard to sight, but all I could see was just lots of bodies around me, lots of splashing, so I was just kind of guided by the feet in front. I felt like I had got off to a good start, and kind of when I was breathing to the right could kind of identify a couple of good athletes, so I kind of knew I was in a good position, and I was fairly certain I was kind of in that main swim pack. Josh Lewis was kind of solo off the head, but I think yeah, for the majority of the swim I was in that pack, until we kind of reached the halfway point where we kind of got to some choppier water, and I just kind of lost the feet then and kind of had to make my way back on my own, which was pretty frustrating, because I felt I had the ability to kind of stick in that group, and that would have just ultimately set me up for a better race. As it was, I ended up exiting the swim kind of a minute or so behind that main group, with Josh a further minute in front of them, sorry. The bike leg kind of went as Chris and I had expected going into the race in terms of like average powers. It was kind of in the ballpark of what we discussed. We kind of thought that if I had a really good ride, I'd be kind of closer to that 220 bike split. If I had a fairly solid ride as to what I did, I'd be around that like mid 225, which is basically what I ended up riding. And if I had a not so good ride, be closer to that 2 hours 30. So I think overall can't really complain too much with the bike leg. Maybe it was lacking 10 to 20 watts on the climb. I was kind of not really riding as what I would have liked to on the hills, but rode good speed on the descents, and on the flats was riding pretty strong, so reasonably happy with that. So overall fairly happy with how the ride went. I just kind of came away scratching my head a bit as to how I lost so much time to like the faster bike splits on the day, but maybe on a more kind of traditional rolling flatter course would have been a bit more competitive in terms of bike splits. So onto the run, we had a plan of just setting off at kind of 3:30 to 3:35 kilometre pace and just seeing if I could hold that throughout, which on paper should be fairly conservative and manageable, but it's just something I've not really been able to do in the past. So that was just trying to nail a consistent run split. And once I slipped on my trainers and headed out to the run course, I settled into that plan, running around that 3:35 range, and it felt pretty comfortable. I was feeling good. That was until kind of like the 2 to 3k mark, and I started to then struggle. My left glute started to seize up a bit, so I had to kind of drop the pace just to kind of manage that. And kind of partway through the second lap, that started to ease, so I felt like I wanted to start pushing on again. And then I started to experience a bit of cramp, which I haven't had in ages. So every time I kind of wanted to push on, I would get like the onset of cramp in my hamstring. So I had to almost like kick my leg out to save that. And that was just kind of the story of the next 2 laps really till I got to the finish. Just kind of wanted to push on, but my body just not letting me be able to. So pretty frustrating in that. Like I felt physically I was capable of more, but I just wasn't able to execute on the day. So I think overall there's like plenty of positives to take away. I think at the moment I just kind of want to see progression across swim, bike, run from race to race, and ultimately saw a bit of progression across the swim and the bike this race versus kind of last season. I just think maybe some open water skills were lacking. I'd only swam twice in the wetsuit the 2 days prior to the race, so hopefully the weather picks up a bit here in the UK and can get some more open water swimming done. And the run, it's just a frustrating one. I know that I'm definitely capable of more of that. It's just figuring out how I translate that from training to racing. I did have a couple of niggles leading into this race, so kind of the running the last few weeks has been a bit limited, but hopefully now recover, get a good couple of weeks of training in before the next race of the year, which will be 70.3 Staffordshire.